Good evening. I'm Jon Bruner from Forbes magazine. Tonight we're going to talk about whether the media is out of touch, which is an accusation commonly leveled against those of us in the mainstream media from both the left and the right, with this idea that we just don't know the pain and privation of being a middle-class American. So in terms of the economy, we actually are quite a bit like the rest of America. This is the most important issue for most people in the upcoming election, particularly jobs. And in this respect, here's the dreariest graph you'll see all evening. There are about as many jobs across all industries in America in 2010 as in 2004. There are 15% fewer reporter jobs in 2010 and 20% fewer television commentator jobs. So in this respect, we're very much in touch with the rest of America. We're also in touch with the rest of America in terms of stagnating salaries. The mean reporter in the US makes a little under $44,000. The mean worker makes about $47,000. So we're a little worse off than the average American. Also, our salaries have fallen by about by about 1% on average since 2004. The rest of the country has been flat, and we do especially badly when you compare us to people with college degrees who make closer to $70,000 a year. It is in education, though, that we start to look very different from the rest of America. 30% of American adults have at least a bachelor's degree, which means that if you have any kind of bachelor's degree, an online degree from the University of Phoenix, you're at the 70th percentile of American adults in terms of educational attainment. So I'll use admission rates as a quick proxy for where you are within that 30% who have gone to college. 30% of colleges in the US admit every applicant who applies, and another 85% admit more than half their applicants. So if you got into one of the colleges that admits fewer than 20% of their applicants, you're already at the top 1% of people with a college degree in terms of educational attainment. So what that means is that if you go to a college like Montclair State University in New Jersey, which admits half its applicants, you're at the 94th percentile of American adults in terms of educational attainment, right? Totally different from the average adult with your four-year degree from Montclair State University. If you go to the University of Virginia, which admits about 30% of its applicants, you're at the 98th percentile of American adults in terms of educational attainment. And if you went to Harvard, where 7% get in, you're well above the 99.9th percentile. So to compare all of you to the rest of America, I've scraped your LinkedIn profiles, and you are indeed phenomenally different from Americans on average. For one thing, 10% of you went to Harvard for college, which is incredibly different from the rest of America. It goes without saying. There's also big representation from Yale, Stanford, MIT, the University of Missouri, and the University of Minnesota, all of which are fantastic schools and put you way out of the mainstream. For what it's worth, the rest of the national news industry, I surveyed a handful of national news outlets. 1.5% of these employees at national news outlets went to Harvard. That's still incredibly high, because for the rest of American adults, 0.03% went to Harvard, right? So if you're sitting in this room, the chance that you went to Harvard is 300 times the chance that the average American went to Harvard. And if you work for any national news outlet, like the New York Times or the Washington Post, the chance is 50 times greater that you went to Harvard than the average American. This plays out in terms of what we majored in. Most of us in this room, journalism, or the largest percentage, journalism and communications, but also a lot of liberal arts. That's not true for the rest of America, where 22% major in business, and more people major in leisure and fitness studies than in mathematics or philosophy. So this plays out in terms of a lot of cultural preferences that set this group apart from the rest of the United States. For one thing, journalists are much more likely to live in New York and Washington than the rest of the country. That gives you a really unique outlook on America. For one, so if you're a journalist, you're 50% more likely to live in New York than the rest of the country, and you're 3 times more likely to live in Washington than the rest of the country. So all of you have a very different outlook. You're similar in that you're about as poor and badly off in the job market as the rest of America, but in terms of your cultural preferences and your outlook in a lot of other respects, you're very, very special. Thanks.
That's great.